Wes Streeting, is bad advice a good enough excuse for somebody who wants to be the Deputy Prime Minister and set the rules for others?
It is the honest position, and it's a position lots of people have found themselves in over the years when it comes to managing their tax. I think throughout this whole thing, Angela Rayner has been very transparent, very honest, very straightforward. She's answered all the questions that have been put to her about her living arrangements, about her tax arrangements. She answered all of those questions honestly and in good faith. She set out all of the facts to such an extent that people were then able to scrutinise those facts, challenge whether she had paid enough tax, and having seen that, she went on her own judgment and got independent expert tax advice, realised she made a mistake, and again, she has been completely honest and upfront, admitted she's made a mistake, and she's referred herself to the Prime Minister's Independence Ethics Advisor so that he can judge all of the facts and all of the process in all of this. So she's made a mistake, sure, but she's made an honest mistake. Right,
so if it's an honest mistake and there's no question of dishonesty or no integrity around this when Laurie Magnus reports, you think that's fine? You know, because she's admitted that she considered resignation. You know, if she'd asked your advice, what would you have said?
I would absolutely have told her not to resign. I think it would have been a travesty, frankly.
Despite the impact on politics, because you know there will be some people who are sympathetic and there'll be lots of people who aren't. And, you know, all the opposition are saying she's a hypocrite. She called for Nadeem Zahawi to go under very similar circumstances, where he said he'd had bad advice and then corrected it. And this is going to be a political nightmare for you.
I've known Angela for a long time, and I know what motivates her, and I know her integrity. She is an honest woman, she's a decent woman, and her motivation at the heart of all of this was making sure that later in life, when she's moved on, when she's passed on, that her children, particularly her son, who's got special educational needs and disabilities, has a sort of security in life that she could only dream of growing up. That was her motivation.
Well, that was the motive for the trust.
Yeah.
It's not the motive for deciding how much tax stamp duty you pay on a new flat.
But the point I make here, Christian, is that Angela's motivation has been about providing for her kids. Angela's approach has been to seek advice, which is the right thing to do. Yeah. It turns out she was badly advised, but understandably she's followed the advice in good faith.
You can see the political damage, can't you? I mean, regardless of whether she was bad about this or not, this is politically damaging, isn't it? You were supposed to be the government beyond reproach, and you no longer are.
Of course, our political opponents will be gunning for Angela Rayner. They don't like her, they don't like what she represents, and they frankly don't like the impact she's had. I think back to so many of the achievements in our first year as a Labour government, and some of our best achievements, the ones that have got Angela's fingerprints on, whether that's the employment rights that will give people day one rights and protections at work. And literally just last night I was in Parliament.
But she's the housing minister. And this is a scandal over housing tax.
And she's the
housing minister. How does she have any authority to talk about tax with other people now?
She's the housing minister that grew up in a council flat and is now building council homes so that other kids have the same security that Ange and I had growing up, and so that they can grow up to achieve their potential just as Ange and I have. She is making a real impact. She's making a real difference. There aren't many people like her, like me, from our sort of backgrounds in politics, and she is using the privilege she has as Deputy Prime Minister, the office that she has been appointed to, the position she's been elected to make a real difference for working class people from backgrounds like ours. And in her management of her own affairs, in terms of her tax, she has at every point taken advice, done what she believed to be the right thing to do in good faith and with integrity. And when challenged, she answered all the questions. And when people said, well, we've looked at the facts in the newspapers, we think you haven't paid enough tax, she didn't try and hide. She went and got independent tax advice, realised she made a mistake, and again today she's been in front of the camera holding herself to account, holding her hands up, being honest about the mistake, and she's referred herself to the Prime Minister's independent
The journalists
advisor.
have done a public service, is the truth, isn't it? Because as she herself said, you know, every pound of tax that isn't paid is depriving public services. This is tens of thousands of pounds of tax that she hadn't paid.
Well, journalists do a public service, and you do hold us to account. And we, in turn, when you ask us questions, we can either try and deflect, obfuscate, or be dishonest in the worst cases, or we can do what Angela has done at every stage in recent days and weeks, which is answer the questions, look back on the facts of her house purchase and the tax she paid, look back at the original advice she got. She assured herself that she'd done the right thing in terms of that advice. The facts were then out there.
The advice. The advice will be written.
Well, one of the reasons Angela has referred herself to the independent advisor, she's referred herself, she's not been referred, she's referred herself, is so that someone independent of her, independent of the Prime Minister, someone who is the independent ethics advisor, can look at her handling of this from start to finish and reach an independent judgment that people can have confidence in. So again, I just think she's made a mistake, but it has been an honest mistake. The way she's conducted herself in all of this has been in good faith.
Well, we'll see what Laurie Magnus says about that. That's for Laurie Magnus to decide, isn't it? I mean, the trouble is, we were supposed to be doing an interview now about caffeinated drinks and stopping children getting them in phase 2 of this government as you try and relaunch. And here you are, sort of mired in a scandal that is the kind of thing that you would have expected of the last government.
Well, I'm very happy to talk about what we're doing today on energy drinks.
Well, that's not really the point I'm making. The point I'm making is this is a political mess that is going to overshadow you for months in the run-up to the budget.
I'm perfectly happy and willing to defend a good friend and a good colleague who I think has acted in good faith and has followed advice in good faith. And when she made a mistake, when she makes mistakes, and believe me, in government we are going to make mistakes, either professionally or personally, held her hands up, admitted it, and trying to put it right. And I think that's all you can ask of someone. We are all human beings. Yeah. We all make mistakes. If we expect our politicians to be Mary Poppins and practically perfect in every way, we're setting all of us up to fail, and we're setting the country up for a disappointment. The question is, when you make a mistake, how do you respond to that? Do you pretend it wasn't really a mistake, or do you take it on the chin, hold your hands up and do the right thing? And that's exactly what Angela has done today. To her credit, she's been in front of the camera today. She was at Prime Minister's questions today, and she referred herself to the independent ethics advisor so that he could look at all of it and assure himself, so that he can assure the Prime Minister and the public that everything has been done in the right way.
Right. But just the last thing on this is, there is the charge of hypocrisy. She called on Nazim Zahawi to resign. She said his story didn't add up. Why is she any different?
I think at the heart of all of this was Angela's determination with the trust she set up for her kids to make sure that they were provided for long after she's gone. And as people know, because Angela has talked very honestly about her own upbringing and also about, her own family and the challenges that, particularly around special educational needs and disabilities that there are, she has sought to make sure that her kids have got the sort of security in life that she could only dream of when she was growing up. She's not the sort of person who thinks, how can I pay as little tax as possible? She is the sort of person who thinks, how can I make sure my kids have the security in life that I didn't have growing up? And she is the sort of person who day in, day out in that job as Deputy Prime Minister thinks, how do I provide security and opportunity for working class kids from backgrounds like ours? That's why she's championed employment rights. It's why she's building the council homes that this country desperately needs, as well as homes for families to rent and buy. Okay. It's why she's been at the heart of so much of the social justice agenda of this government. It's why I'm proud to call her a friend, why I'm proud to call her a colleague, and why in all of this I have not doubted her honesty and integrity. I think I've got the measure of the woman I've worked with over the last 10 years. I think she's a decent and honest person. She's made a mistake, sure, but I genuinely think it's an honest mistake.
Then let me ask you about delivery at your end. Only yesterday, the government published the terrible figures on excess deaths for people with learning disabilities. You know, twice as many people dying because they're not being diagnosed properly. Later on in our program today, you know, we're talking to people whose diagnoses for terrible life-limiting diseases have not happened quickly enough for them. What are you going to do about this?
Yeah, it's a shocking set of statistics that were published yesterday. They are date back a couple of years, but nonetheless, I doubt there's been a transformation in the last 2 years. And what these statistics, because there are people behind these statistics, and these are learning disabled people who are dying 20 years younger than everyone else. And if you're black or Asian and learning disabled, the life expectancy is lower further still. So there are real health inequalities here. And that is why at the heart of our government's 10-year plan for health, we've got a big focus on tackling health inequalities. That's why I'm in politics, to tackle injustice in our society and inequality in our society. But also on this issue specifically, it's why we're rolling out the Oliver McGowan training programme covering 3 million health and care workers to make sure that we've got the right training and understanding in place to prevent avoidable harm. And the one thing I'd flag for your viewers, actually, because this is something people can access now, learning disabled people are entitled to an annual health check with their GP. The take-up is well below 100%. So there's a lot for us to do as a government in terms of improving provision, but also to raise awareness of the provision that's already there. We will make sure that the clinicians and the care workers understand the health needs of learning disabled people to try and change the numbers in the right way for learning disabled people and to close those disgraceful gaps in life expectancy. But I don't shy away from these numbers, and in fact I'm committed to make sure that that research report and that data is published every year so that people can hold us to account and measure progress on what I think is a shameful inequality in our society.
And let's end on caffeinated drinks, which is what we were supposed to be talking about, and stopping children getting their hands on them. I mean, to be honest, 3 days into this government's relaunch, you probably feel like you could do with a Red Bull.
Well, on the substance of the policy, this is something we promised to do in our manifesto. Promise made, promise kept. And the reason we're doing this is because we've heard the outcry from parents and teachers and also from young people themselves and the brilliant campaigners at Bite Back who know that these high caffeine energy drinks are having a massive impact on children's learning, their concentration. Teachers can see it at school, but also when they get home, the sleepless nights, the impact that has on their, on their development as not just as young people, but as adults as well. So, when you see that impact and then you layer in some of the class inequality in this area as well, we had to act and we promised to do it. We are doing it. And today what we're doing to get the ball rolling is a short, sharp consultation to make sure that it works in practice as well as in principle. A lot of big retailers are already doing it. We're really talking about some of our convenience shops and corner shops on the high street. And we'll be working with them to support them to roll this out everywhere, because it's not right that young people are suffering in their health and in their education because of a can of drink that contains the equivalent of 4 cans of Coke in terms of caffeine, with all of the consequences that we know, as well as the amount of sugar in and the impact on youth obesity as well. So very proud of what we're doing today. It's just one example of the change that this Labour government is delivering thanks to the change that people voted for at the last election.
Wes Streeting, thank you very much.
Thank you.